seeing now is one of the deleted scenes from Stewart. This would be Stewart's tour of the house. Mr. and Mrs. Little take Stewart into the kitchen and show him around. And of course, being an orphan, Stewart is very impressed with some of the appliances, specifically the appliance you'll be seeing in a moment. The refrigerator. There it is. It's big and it's full. That's of course important to Stewart.
When we eat such foods as Western omelets, mashed potatoes, and...
The Littles continue their tour in the dining room, and Stewart is, of course, very impressed with the family dining table. Being a new member of the family, of course, all of these things have a great deal of meaning for Stewart, including the family dust mop. This scene, also deleted, takes place just after the family party, where George has said to everyone that Stewart isn't his brother, he's a mouse. And we wanted to show how that discord affected the Littles' relationship. Mr. and Mrs. Little, at the beginning of the film, complete each other's sentences, which was something we wanted to use to show how sympathetic, in a sense, they were. But in this scene, what we discover is that the Littles are beginning to lose that contact, that they've lost the ability, in some sense, to read each other's minds, and it's beginning to concern them. Of course, this scene ends, and in the original cut of the film, we transitioned to the bedroom where Stewart is in bed with the Littles, waking them up because of his concerns of his empty space. In this scene, which takes place after Stewart has left the family, we see George is sleeping in what was Stewart's bedroom. And this was, again, to show the family dealing with the emotions of having given up Stewart.
I had a bad dream.
And again, we wanted to show a sense that the family is together, that the parents, Mr. and Mrs. Little, are obviously showing great concern for George and his feelings about this, because in the scene prior to this, George ran off to the basement and slammed the door. And then, of course, after Stewart leaves, runs into the house and slams the door. And we wanted to make sure that the family felt like they were still bonded together. Of course, in this moment, we're seeing them go through the scene one more time. And we continued the take, so the camera was still rolling, and everyone had to run back to their first positions.
And cue turning.
Just do it.
Here we go. Go.
Oh no!
This scene, which was deleted, was called Have Breakfast. It took place just after Stewart left with the Stouts and went home with them to live in the castle on the golf course. This is, of course, the next morning when they're sitting around the table having breakfast. Mr. Stout is reading the newspaper, and we see that Stewart is asking them about his family. Now, of course, the Stouts weren't really his parents, so they were covering up that aspect of things to Stewart. But we wanted to show how Stewart began to endear himself to the family, how Mrs. Stout actually is reaching out toward Stewart and wanting to make him feel at home, where Mr. Stout is being basically Mr. Stout, talking about rummaging through dumpsters and doing that as a family activity. Now, of course, you see some of the shots in this were not completed as well, because we had decided to take this scene out before we had completed them. In this scene, the police detectives are interrogating Mr. and Mrs. Little just after they've arrived to get their story about the disappearance of their son. Detective Sherman, played by John Polito, and Detective Allen, played by Jim Dugan, are a little confused when Mr. and Mrs. Little actually explain that their son is 3 inches tall and weighs 6 ounces. And one of the reasons we cut this scene was because it was starting to question the reality that we'd set up, that none of the human actors in the story actually questioned Stewart's existence at all. That in spite of the fact that he was a talking mouse, everyone actually, in some ways, ignored that point.
Well, he is.
In this scene, which was the lineup, the police lineup. The Littles have gone to the police station where they are asked to identify the perpetrator of the crime, hopefully that they've gathered as one of the usual suspects. But unfortunately, none of the mice meet the description.